Good morning, good afternoon, good night, people. Let's go. There we have a flag from Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Argentina, USA, Africa, Australia, Europe. Don't stop that applause. We're transmitting to the rest of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? Don't stop that applause. Marvelous people, look how beautiful. How are you? Look at the Argentinian flag there in the back. It was semi-hidden. To everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for connecting. We're transmitting live. Of course, we've already sang, we've celebrated. And the people on the other side that say, well, why don't you transmit a little bit of it? Well, because there are things that have to do with the experience of being here, of being present. There are other things that we can share, however. Make plans to try and be here at River Arena and to feel this marvelous experience. There's even a good smell here, right? If you don't shower, it doesn't matter. There's an aroma at River, and it's great. But what's true is that we're happy. In just a bit, I'm going to transmit what I believe God placed in my heart. But before, I want to share with you that our missionaries are back from Uganda. How beautiful. We were scared that some might stay behind, that somebody might fall in love over there, that they either stay or come back with company. It hasn't happened yet, but what's true is the whole team is back, and we're very proud. We're very, very proud of the job they've done, because the trip itself it's incredible. You have to travel 48 hours. They left on a Sunday. Sorry, they left on a Saturday. And they arrived Monday night. Africa's 10 hours ahead, and of course they have a stop in Dubai, but they went to be with our little ones, our children, that are part of River School. It's almost 300 children. During the following weeks, we're going to share more with you because we're editing the videos right now. We built them a playground. We improved a lot of installments, a lot of things that we'll share with you. We're going to continue going back. We're going to continue sending people. And so here's a very, very short video. We can't invest too much time on this, but I want to show you at least the arrival of our missionaries and how our children receive them. That rhythm is great. We didn't want to put music over it so you can hear the original audio. But we don't have that. You know what Caribbeans have and Cubans have. We don't have that. As much as we try and move like that, we don't have it. But that's just a little bit of what happened in Uganda. Those that go to Africa, their lives are changed forever. Especially because you stop complaining over foolish things. Because you reorder your priorities, and I think that's what it's about. In the Western world, we begin to complain, we begin to gossip, we begin to become sad over foolish things because there's no good Wi-Fi or because we're at a restaurant where we don't get good reception. And when you go there, I say, even though they have the basic, the essentials, you realize that these children's joy comes from somewhere else, not because of a tablet or an electronic device. Obviously, when you see that they're happy and joyous, they're never sad. Even when they would eat every other day before we arrived, even before we established the school, and they would eat mud cookies with oil, even then, they were always joyous. And so you learn more than what you actually take to Africa. Of course, we always take our seed and our offering, and now I'm going to transmit what I believe God told me to tell you. But before that, the last thing, my country, Argentina, I send them a special greeting. Today, they have presidential elections, so anytime there are elections at a country, it's always the good exercise of democracy, no matter who wins, who loses. But in Argentina today, they have to decide who's going to be the next president. However, whoever comes in, we always pray, not just there, but El Salvador, Colombia, Honduras, Mexico. When AMLO stops giving so many press conferences, no matter where, we always say the good thing is we need a man who can at least govern with integrity. No matter who it is, we need to pray for our governors. If Argentina doesn't go through the best of moments, and I want to show you this because it's marvelous. We had it as a project on the slow burner. It's the north of the city of Buenos Aires, specifically in a neighborhood called Ricardo Rojas, and a foundation that works with us called Impulse. So it's a soccer club, 200 children who would play soccer, but in terrible conditions. And we arrived. When we arrived, the miracle happened that they had been praying for so long. I want to share this with you because not only can you help Africa, you can also help Mexico, Colombia, here, countries not too far, and Argentina, the country that saw me come to this world. We wanted to help them out, and here's a short moving story. Watch.
Con el equipo de River Church los impulsaremos para que ese sueño se haga realidad.
Allen es una familia, primero que nada. Compartimos y convivimos todo el tiempo y en lo que podamos estamos para ayudar y sumar. Yo nací en este barrio, me crié en este barrio y esto no existía. Nosotros jugábamos a la pelota a 150 metros de acá en un descampado. Y para poder tener luz, prendíamos antorchas alrededor para poder jugar a la pelota tarde o tarde-noche. Pero era eso, cruzar este bendito arroyo que tenemos y jugar a la pelota todo el tiempo. Este lugar pasó a ser, desde mi perspectiva, un lugar de contención, más con la sociedad como estamos hoy, tener 140, 150 chicos acá, que los chicos no estén en la calle, que podamos tener contención familiar. Los chicos no están en la calle. Nosotros tratamos de hacer por todos los medios de que estén acá adentro, de poder dar una contención. Hemos intentado armar un comedor, de hecho algunos chicos cuando estamos en épocas complicadas de invierno ayudamos para que le den de comer. La contención sería familiar 100%. La intención está, Dios dirá.
Acá los chicos de la calle son un montón que tenemos acá todo el día. O sea, a las 6 de la tarde, tenemos un sereno en el club está abierto a partir de las 6 de la tarde y los chicos están hasta las 10 de la noche, 9 jugando a la pelota acá. Nosotros era fin de año, le regalamos la ropa a todos los chicos le regalamos, sin que los padres pongan un peso. Le regalamos todo conjunto con pantalón y a la gente que nos colabora también le regalamos. O sea, que vienen a dar una mano con las obras, con hacer algo, es como que vos lo tenés presente, ¿me entendés? Perdimos un nene de 8 añitos, pobrecito, que cuando nosotros pusimos los arcos y no había alambrado, no había nada, el nene, me acuerdo, cuando te acordás bien las caras, fue uno de los primeros nenes. Y tuvo un infartito, pobrecito, y lo perdimos, teníamos un año de club. Lo perdimos y siempre tuvimos contención con la familia, y la familia siempre estuvo agradecida y yo siempre le dije, acá tienen las puertas abiertas y vienen como todos los días.
Me llamo Cintia, soy mamá de Romeo.
Adrián, soy el papá de Romeo.
Es familia, muy agradecida por todo lo que nos ayudaron con mi hijo. La verdad, sin palabras, es algo que no me va a alcanzar la vida para devolverle todo lo que hicieron, porque me dieron una mano enorme. Ese día que yo perdí a A Romeo, te soy sincera, no teníamos un peso, no teníamos nada. Y cuando llegué a casa llegaron todos los de la LEN. Llegó Gustavo, llegó Diego, todos los de la LEN llegaron y me dijeron que no me tenía que hacer cargo de nada porque ya habían pagado la cochería, el cementerio, el entierro, todo. Todo. Es más, lo velé acá porque me dieron la oportunidad de velarlo más horas acá.
No, y esta pintura lo mandó a hacer el club, bueno, a nombre de Romeo, para tener un recuerdo más que nada, ¿viste?, de él. Amaba el fútbol, él era su pasión. Siempre, él nunca faltó a los entrenamientos, a un partido, lo que sea. A veces venía solo, ¿viste?, se nos escapaba y venía acá a jugar con los chicos, con los compañeros.
No me va a alcanzar la vida para agradecer todo lo que hicieron por mi hijo, por lo que hacen por nosotros y por estar siempre pendiente.
Hoy, cientos de jugadores que alguna vez fueron contenidos y formados por algún club de barrio triunfan en el mundo. Y por eso, River Church, a los chicos del Club Alem, les trae esta sorpresa de unos amigos muy especiales que recordarán por siempre.
Hola, soy Leo Paredes, le quería mandar un saludo muy grande a todos los chicos de Alem, decirles que sigan disfrutando de este deporte, que lo hagan con la mayor responsabilidad posible, pero que nunca dejen de disfrutar. Abrazo grande, chau chau.
Hola, soy Nico Tariafico y quería hacer este video más que nada para motivarlos, para ayudarlos, para que sepan de que los sueños se pueden lograr, obviamente siendo muy disciplinado, esforzándose, trabajando en el día a día. Las cosas no van a salir por momentos, pero ahí donde tiene que salir la perseverancia y seguir intentando, que a la larga todo ese esfuerzo trae su recompensa.
Hola a todos, soy Jaime Rodríguez, quisiera mandarles un saludo muy especial y comentarles y para poder triunfar, obviamente que en el fútbol hay que tener un poquito de suerte, pero no es fácil, hay que hacerlo con mucha humildad, con mucho trabajo, pensando siempre en grande, soñando siempre en grande y bueno, espero que se les pueda cumplir el sueño de poder llegar a donde ustedes quieren. Si no, lo más importante es que sean buenas personas, personas que quieran hacer el bien, personas que quieran siempre ayudar y muchos éxitos para todos. Un abrazo.
Acá a los chicos se les brinda contención y amor todo el tiempo. Cada técnico deja de ser técnico para ser papá de los chicos. Y para eso hay que tener, primero, una buena cabeza, una buena voluntad, buen don de gente y mucho amor. No hay otra manera. Y perdón, eso es lo que me emociona. Porque este es mi barrio. Esta es mi gente, yo no vivo acá. Pero para mí es eso, es mi familia. ¿Cómo se puede medir la recompensa del amor? No hay manera. Cuando uno es capaz de dar y tiene a Dios presente, creo que todo lo demás, porque yo me veo en cada uno de ellos, y que de repente acá los contengan, y que alguien se ocupe de ellos, no es fácil. Y sin embargo acá hay gente que deja de trabajar y se presta al juego y hace lo mejor que puede. La tierra abajo es muy dura, si abajo el piso está re duro. Vos imaginate que cada vez que los chicos tienen que venir a jugar tenemos que regar las canchas para poder que se ablande un poco. Sueño despierto, te lo aclaro, no cuando estoy dormido. Porque mis sueños se tienen que hacer realidad. Entonces voy a cumplir 63 años. Y para mucha gente puede ser una persona grande. Para mí, recién estoy empezando.
Este club que se mantiene en pie gracias al amor, la valentía y el esfuerzo de un grupo de personas que han asumido el compromiso de llevar luz donde todo es oscuridad, hoy se visten de jugadores para disputar el partido más importante de su historia. Y para este encuentro...
Mi hijo estaría feliz, él amaba la cancha y sé que desde el cielo donde está feliz y mandándonos fuerzas y que su hermana disfrute del club y que lo disfruta por él también.
Si es River Church, yo voy a jugar en primera. Gracias River Church, acá voy a meter muchos goles.
River Church, misión cumplida.
That is your seed for our beloved Argentina. I say that sometimes politicians make it seem so hard, building a field. I know these aren't the primary needs of a human being, but imagine if we're just a simple congregation of Hispanic people, the majority of us aren't millionaires, and we can do so much with just a little bit from each person. What would happen if in each of our countries we began to give, right? And if each candidate stopped, I was going to say steal, but no, that sounds terrible. Let's just say if they stopped borrowing, right? But what's true is thank you people. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Foundation Impulse. May God bless you very much. Very well. Are we ready, people? Yes or no? I always tend to ask myself when the tradition began, the tradition of asking our kids what they want to be when they grow up. And that's a question that ants tend to ask. What is the little boy going to do when he grows up? I think it's impossible for a boy or a girl who's 8 years old having a realistic idea of what they want to be. They don't have a clue. Just like it's impossible of an 18-year-old having an idea of what they'll do. It's tough. Others figure out at 40, but that's a different story. But I say it would be great for us to have absolute clarity of our life's direction in our first years of childhood. It would be marvelous if we said, from the moment I was a child, I knew what I wanted to do. But statistics say that many reach adult life with the frustration that the life that they have isn't the one that they wanted or what they had imagined. And some feel the sensation that life is something that just happened in place of it being something that they decided would happen. It's just something that happened. And how did you end up here? Oh, I don't know. It's life. It's as if they were actors with secondary roles. Of course, let's go and say that there are talented people that are born with a talent that demands their life. I mean, I don't think Mozart had a choice with what he would do with his life. It was clear that Taylor Swift wasn't a great mathematician, right? And when you're 10 years old and you're Messi, you're supposed to play soccer. You know what you want, because in those cases, the talent chose you. But all the rest of us that aren't born with the visible talent from childhood, sometimes we're left almost like we're walking through fog, not knowing what to do. I fit into the category of those that didn't have an idea of what I would do when I grew up. Of course, I had an idea of being an astronaut and all those things. Just to say, you want to leave home and be far from home. But I remember I would draw for hours and hours and hours. That's what I like to do. But my dad used to say, that's not going to give you any job opportunities. Nobody lives off of that. And so that's where parents intervene and say, no, you need to be a lawyer or an architect, or you have to study medicine. Or the famous phrase, in my country it's very famous, they would say, try and find a career that gives you job opportunities. That when you graduate from high school, not college, but high school, someone's looking for you to give you a job at a factory according to what you studied. So I learned in those years of indecision that if we don't define ourselves, then we will be defined by others. Always, always. My parents sent me to study the same thing as my older brother, an electronic technician at a special school. But I say, what the heck does electronics have to do with me? But they would say, no, it's a good school. It's a German school called Werner von Siemens. They give you materials. You would learn in German, it's practically Deutsch. I learned that German isn't a language you speak, it's a language you spit out. And here's the drama. If we don't choose a life for ourselves, then we end up with a life that never should have been our life in the first place. Only when you know what you want, when we know what we want, can we say no to what others want to impose on us. But you have to know clearly what you want. And that's something that isn't clear to us for a great portion of our lives. That's why when we live an inherited life, well, I'm following this career or I'm doing this because that's what my mom wanted or my uncle, my cousin, my godfather. At some point, the routine begins to erode us and the habitual begins to cloud our vision. Our fire begins to go out. That which came with us from the factory, the way God wired us. And that's where we even lose the joy of being alive. Because that makes us so that we dedicate ourselves to something that we don't like, and it erodes our happiness in all orders of life. A couple can be very in love, but if we take romance out of the equation, the relationship becomes routine. A child's birth is marvelous, it's miraculous, but we begin to change diapers every morning, and the routine begins. Many of us are happy the day we find a job, finally. But then the routine begins, and we live hoping for the weekend. I know a lot of people that drag themselves from Monday to Friday, or from Monday to Saturday, waiting for Sunday. So one of the greatest dangers that we face in life is when we learn how to do it, but we forget why we're doing it in all orders of life. You can come to church and know how to get here, how to sing, but you forgot why you came in the first place. It happens with your job, with your partner, with your children. So we learn how, but we forget the reason or why. And so we tend to think and act according to an inherited belief system. And we've spoken about this many times here. We call it heuristic predisposition. Even though it sounds like an epidemic, it's a psychological idea. It's a cognitive process that's completely complex, but the final result is mental dullness. When you do things without thinking, you live without thinking, you breathe without thinking, you go to work without thinking, you raise children without realizing that you're raising them. And so your routine life begins to make our mind dull, begins to numb our emotions and our feelings, and we're going through life as if we're dragging our feet. I don't know if your mother's told you what my mother told me. Stop dragging your feet! Because at some point during adolescence, you drag your feet around like a mammoth. For you to do it as an adolescent, fine, you correct it. But as an adult, and metaphorically speaking, to live dragging your feet, that's sad. Or we go around on a wheel like a hamster. We work and sweat to pay off debts. And we never get anywhere. We never accomplish what we once proposed. And you might think, all right, Dante, but the routine pays for the bills. You're right. That's fine. A dignified job isn't wrong. You have to work to pay your bills. You can't be a hedonist who does whatever they want and you get paid for what you like doing. No, sometimes you have to work, do what you have to do. What I'm saying is that what ends up making us fed up is the I have to do it replaces I want to do it. Even here inside the congregation, inside the church, those that are volunteers and say, oh, I have to go back today, you can notice it. When I have to do it replaces I want to do it. And so I know many people that study, they work, they wake up every morning without any direction. And this happens with the president of a company, to a pastor, to a doctor, to a lawyer, a teacher, or even a mother who cooks every day. And we all identify with that tendency of beginning to live without direction, even in our personal relationships. Because the day comes where our partner is more marked by tolerance than by passion. Oh, well, I have to put up with this fat guy. How much longer is he going to live? It doesn't happen here, but for the other service, there are a lot of those potential assassins. We said that we would record memories in our children, but all of a sudden the routine makes us raise them by having them attached to a phone screen. So some people watch their children grow up while their children are in bed, because when they leave to work, the children are sleeping. When they come back home from work, the children are sleeping. And so we find ourselves in a routine of a life we didn't want. It's not what we planned. So we become frustrated, become irritable, And we're tired of being who we are because that's not the life that we had planned. And what's ironic from all this is that many of us continue to desire a different future, a new future, but for the meantime, we cling on to the present because that's all we know. We want God to give us something new. We all say we want something new from God, but we never allow God to take away the old. So we can't take the new if we don't leave the old. And if we're not aware of that, then our future ends up becoming an extension of our past. It's like a past that just extends instead of it being different the way we dreamed. And our past, this is worse, can become a prison that perpetuates the beliefs of those that brought us up. We tend to repeat the things that our parents did that we didn't want to repeat. So in a certain way, I don't know if it's intentional, I think it's more unconscious, we reproduce the same culture with those that surround us in the same way that we were brought up. And you might ask, well, is that wrong? Well, if you repeat the wrong things, then yes. But what's deceitful is that sometimes we spend our lives trying to not be our parents. And obviously, I'm not going to ask who doesn't want to be like their parents out of good taste. But we end up looking like the person we never wanted to look like. That's the worst part. During therapy or during counseling, the phrase always comes up, I swore I would never be like that person. But now I realize that I'm becoming exactly like them. And I know that internal fight. Because on many occasions, I proposed to myself to not be like the worst version of my father. He taught me good things and other things that aren't so good that I won't share. But I told myself I wouldn't be like him. But sometimes I get scared because I see myself acting like him. I hear my voice and it's my father's voice. It's enough that my hands look like my father's hands. That's enough. But sometimes I hear my voice sounding like my father, or I hear myself saying phrases that he used to say that I hated. Well, we'll see what we do next week, and a lot can happen from today to tomorrow. You know, our parents were politicians back in the day. They always had a way to say things. There's a story in the Bible that tells that Jacob was tired of dealing with his father-in-law, who was a cheater and a scoundrel. Jacob just wanted to marry his daughter, and his father-in-law's name Laban always ended up scamming him. And to make a long story short, he even changed Jacob's salary 10 times. A scammer, he was a scoundrel. And so one day, God gives Jacob a dream, and he tells him, I'll give you a way to negotiate with your father-in-law. I want you to tell him that you're going to divide up the herd, the flock, and you're going to keep the sheep and the goats that have marks. And it was crazy because sheep aren't zebras. They don't have marks. They don't have spots or blotches. But God says, you know what? You'll keep the ones with all the spots, and he'll keep the ones that are pure. That was a terrible deal for Jacob, but that's what God told them. Because like I said, a flock has very, very few sheep that are born with different colors. And so the father-in-law, Argentinian and naughty, said, yeah, I love it. I love this idea. And so Genesis, the book of Genesis, in chapter 37, it says, Jacob, however, took fresh cut branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and made white stripes on them by peeling the bark and exposing the white inner wood of the branches. Then he placed the peeled branches in all the watering troughs so that they would be directly in front of the flocks when they came to drink. When the flocks were in heat and came to drink, they made it in front of the branches, and they bore young that were streaked or speckled or spotted. I was reading that a few experts affirm that Jacob, when he took the bark from the branches, he could have exposed a nutritive substance from the water, and that might have changed the colors of the sheep and the goats. No matter what, this isn't an agriculture lesson. This is the way in which we reproduce our way of thinking or speaking. The watering trough is what we always see as a reference, almost without noticing. Proverbs 23:7 says, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. The way you think is the way you act. There's no way to be different. So sometimes we waste a bunch of energy trying to not be someone, not be something. But to not be that someone or something, in fact, to avoid it, we have to have our eyes on it. You say, I don't want to be like my mother. And to do that, you have to look at your mother so that you don't imitate her. So if you see what you don't want to be, you end up reproducing it, just like these sheep and these goats. This explains why so many people that grew up through abuse, as adults, they abuse their children the same way their parents abused them. And you ask, how can they repeat the pattern? They promised themselves that they would never become like their parents, but they ended up becoming exactly like them. You're all looking at me with the desire to kill yourselves, as if to say it's happening to me, but let me advance. To begin to heal ourselves, we have to learn what belief system we inherited without wanting. What's the system that travels in our genes, in our environment? Psychological investigations reaffirm that the concept that we have of our lives is defined by a small bit of experiences from our childhood. And you might say, no, because when we come to God, all things are made new. Yeah, but even then, today's adults are yesterday's children. So 99% of the experiences that we go through vanish in our subconscious. It's a lie when people say, I remember everything from my childhood. No, you only remember 1% of what happened. There wouldn't be a place, there aren't enough gigabytes in your brain for you to store your whole childhood. And that 1% is what defines us. And managing these memories is very important because we're the sum of what we've been, what we've done, and the people that we've gotten to know. That's what we are today. And so what are our first memories that come to mind? What are the good events, the bad events that marked our years in elementary school, in high school, through university? Because if you suffered bullying, back then it wasn't called bullying, it was called be a man, then it marks you, right? For a girl, it's just put up with it, but it marks you. So what are the first memories? What's going to surprise us is the way in which those apparently insignificant events give form to our subconscious operating system. Even the way in which we see God, the way we were raised, if we don't heal it, it's going to determine the way in which we relate with God. And these apparently superficial events determine our way of seeing life, the way we act. When we hear a song or we watch a movie, I once told you that on the cerebral cortex there are lines called engrams, and if we listen to the same song again and again and again and again, or we watch the same movie over and over again, then that line, that engram is marked again and again and again. That's why teachers back in the day would teach us through repetition, once and again, once and again, once and again. I heard their prepositions. I have no idea what they're for, but I learned them. And, to, for, before, under, if, and. Because they repeated them so many times. I don't know what the heck they're for now, but they repeated them. And with each repetition, that engram is etched in deeper and deeper until that song or that movie is recorded in our cerebral cortex. Now, not all memories are created equal. And you're asking, where is this going? Well, let me get there. There are 3 levels of memories. The first one is sensory memory. And it's as fleeting as remembering a phone number. When you ask, what was the gardener's phone number? It goes to your sensorial memory. Unless you're having a relationship with the gardener, there's no reason for you to remember the number. Then there's short-term memory. It has a longer life because we can remember what we were wearing yesterday or what you ate yesterday for lunch. What did you eat on Friday for lunch? And that's where it becomes a little more complex. What about Monday? What did you eat? No, you can't even remember if you ate anything on Monday. And so that short-term memory begins to fade away. If you could store everything that you ate, everything that you wore in your memory, then your brain would explode. No, it has to fade away. And then a few bit of experiences are the ones that reach long-term memory. And those are the memories that give form to our way, the way in which we think, what we believe. To make it more simple, the duration of a memory How profound that engram is etched in depends on the emotion that was related to what happened. If it marked you for good or for bad. If there was no emotion, if you didn't feel any emotion with a girlfriend, then you wouldn't even remember her name. If there was a lot of emotion, then you're looking for her on Facebook, even though you see that she's a grandma now. The stronger the emotion is, the stronger and long-lasting the memory will be. So almost all of our long-term memories are associated to very intense memories, positive or negative. That famous phrase of, you might forget what they told you, but you'll never forget how they made you feel. I came in like Shakespeare today. Because that's how God structured us. You might say, I go to River, but it's more for how it makes me feel than what they say or the songs. How God makes me feel. That's what marks us. That's what we feel. So 99% of our experiences from the past are forgotten quickly because we don't feel them. Why do we forget about a great part of our childhood? Because we weren't feeling. We were just busy living. That's why it's very healing to manage our memories. And sometimes you have to be aware and defragment some memories. Instead of keeping a registry of offenses and abuse, no, there are certain memories that don't do you any good. It's not good for you to keep them stored in your memory because you're going to take the place of other things. So we have a natural tendency of remembering what we should forget and forgetting what we should remember. And we're going to see that as we grow old, in your case, not me because I'm not there yet, but as you grow old, you no longer remember things. You have memories of memories. You begin to remember things that never really happened that way. Memories aren't objective. As you grow old, memories become very subjective. And we have the tendency of adding romanticism and drama, catastrophic drama to our past. I remember one time I was on the Titanic. Grandpa, you were on the Titanic and he can't even give you a date or a time, nothing. My grandpa would tell me stories where I began to think that he was Rambo. He would say, when I was in the war, I grabbed my rifle, and my grandma would come out and say, shut up, old man, you didn't even enlist in the army. And he would become upset because he felt that he wasn't lying. After telling the story so many times, he felt that he was actually in the war. He would ask, what's this? What's this scar? What's this one? And then my grandma would say, when they removed your appendix. So we all distort our memories on the basis of making some smaller and making others bigger. But the way we remember and manage our memories will determine how we see God and how we see life. And there are people who have a difficult time erasing the bad memories and eliminating the mental trash. And the mismanagement of memories can be as devastating as a mental disability. People that are tied to a poor memory can't receive what God has for them. They can't go to the future. I once told you that The Wizard of Oz was a movie that came out in 1939. I'm sure my grandpa was a part of that as well. But that movie continues to be a marvel, a film. Dorothy, a little girl who lived on a farm in Kansas, interpreted by Judy Garland. Due to a tornado, she ends up in an imaginary world. And from there, a famous phrase was coined. Dorothy told her dog Toto, when she gets to the world of Oz, she says, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And that phrase was used, or is used, when our habitual environment changes, when the faces that we know change, when we cross the border to come and live in this country, those of us that are immigrants. But it's also used in business, in politics, in any environment that's different to the Kansas in which we grew up in. To try and make the phrase contemporary, we can say, we're no longer in Chiapas, we're no longer in El Salvador. This isn't Tijuana anymore, for example. I vote for the phrase, this isn't Tijuana anymore. I know you weren't born in Tijuana, not all of you. But generally, we're attracted by what we know. So for the phrase to not be so American, let's just say this isn't Tijuana anymore. The day you preach, you can say Buenos Aires or whatever example you want to give. Now, there are neighborhoods for Asians, for Hispanics, for colored people, for poor people, for rich people. A famous preacher back in the 80s tried to make a neighborhood only for Christians because what's certain, as I once said, limitations make us feel at ease. It's a controlled neighborhood based on what we know. And our narrow mind tells us that there's nothing beyond the jurisdiction of Tijuana, nothing beyond Buenos Aires. And so we live in our own fishbowl with family problems that are exhausting, that never end. And we can never see the future because we're surrounded by the routine of our beliefs. And I ask, isn't there a moment in life where God wants us to renegotiate what worries us? And what from here on out we're going to begin to ignore? Why are there people that spend entire days submerged in family matters that are insignificant? I know some say, yeah, it happens to me. No, it happens to all of us. I'm aware that there are certain turbulences in life, certain trials that we can't ignore. Terminal illnesses, a disability, etc. But many others are burdens that we drag from old Tijuana. I'm speaking metaphorically. Wherever you were born. I know people that spend resources, money, time extinguishing fires that aren't worth it. And I'm convinced that there must be people here that are addicted to drama. You must know someone that's addicted to drama. They always have a terrible problem. Life is at 6-7 Central. The poor woman from Guadalupe that goes to River. It's always like that. That life is a soap opera. They're fatalists. Their child has flatulence. Oh, and they share it to you as if their kid has cancer. You have no idea. A dinosaur is peeing on me right now. Matthias is constipated. Oh, he's not pooping. God, what did I do to have this life? And you say, there's no way. You have to send this person to Africa in a container. But there are people that dramatize the foolishness from their ordinary lives. And I know that there are real moments of anguish that you can't avoid, but my question is, how do we get to the point where we say, am I not complicating my life with a weight on my shoulders that I can't take away? I inherited it from my parents because that's how my mom was, that's how my grandma was. The writer of the Hebrews in chapter 12, verse 1 says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Last week I said whatever sin we confess is a sin that disappears. But the hard part is to confess the burdens that hinder us, that distract us. This is the trash that inflames us, makes us... In this country, to be healthy, you have to cut gluten, carbs, sugar. Almost no one becomes fat out of eating healthy food. No, what's unhealthy is what makes us bloated. And in life, the same thing happens. There are things that make us swollen. They don't give us nutrients. No, they drain us, they burden us, they put weight on us. And these are things that we inherited from our parents. And I share this with you because this isn't a message for just, oh, you poor mortals. No, many times I've seen myself being dramatic like my mother. My mother was a super actress. Michelle Pfeiffer didn't exist. They were nothing next to my mother. And so sometimes I tend to be dramatic because it travels with me. I always remember my grandmother's home, my grandmother Anna. The house was filled with things that seemed to be artifacts from World War II. I think that's why my grandpa thought that he was a part of the war. Old clothes with holes all over. Picture frames with sepia photographs. A sewing machine. A Singer sewing machine. If anyone here knows what a Singer sewing machine is, then you need to have a colonoscopy once a year. You're at that age. The one with the pedal for your foot, right? Or a washer that sounded like a tractor. It would cause interference for the planes flying overhead. And she would always say, she would boast, I never throw anything out. Well, I can see that. You never got rid of Grandpa either. But my grandmother never wanted to accept that despite how beautiful those things might have been in the past, they're no longer useful. She couldn't let things go, and though it seems terrible, my grandmother Anna is not alone in this, because the majority of us, we accumulate what's familiar from Tijuana, or in my case, Billinghurst, Buenos Aires, things that were nice, but they are no longer useful. What took us out of Egypt might not help to get us into the promised land, but we're compulsive hoarders of history. We keep old relationships when we're not even reciprocated. We continue being loyal to friendships that, as I always say, are maintained by one rower. The day we stop rowing, the day we don't call them on the phone, the day we don't send them a text message, they won't speak to us ever again. Because the relationship was maintained by one rower. I've tried not calling someone for many weeks that I thought was my friend, and I never heard from them again. Never again. And so I say, well then, I was the one that always wanted to say happy birthday or hear it. But you cling on to what's familiar, to what you know. There are people that use the same brand over and over again. But it's not that they're looking for plutonium. I can't find the suppository that I used to use in El Salvador. Really? And don't laugh, because I know people here as well that go all the way to Tijuana, a 4-hour drive, wait at the border, so you can buy some cough drops for your throat that Americans don't know how to make. Really? Because it's not that they're saying, oh, the insulin over there is better. No, I went to go buy some cough drops that you can buy at the pharmacy over there. So here, the Americans could send a rocket to the moon, but they couldn't make those cough drops, right? But us Argentinians are the same. Oh, we make dulce de leche with the cows from Argentina, because here they don't know how. Life is filled with routine and rituals. So you can't pick anything new up if your hands are full. You have to make decisions and let go. Not too long ago, I interviewed a TV host, and he was telling me that for months he suffered a muscular contracture. Very, very serious problem. He couldn't really turn his neck at all. And so he went to all the doctors he knew. He took a lot of medication, and nothing helped. Until he went to go see an old chiropractor who took a pen and said, look, I'm going to prescribe you something for you to take immediately. He grabbed a pen and paper. He said, no. Once you do this, once you take this, you're good. He said, you're going to take decisions. Make decisions. And he said, what kind of decisions? And the chiropractor said, I have no clue, my friend. Only you know that. But it's not more than 2 or 3, because it's burdening your health, it's undermining your health. You have to make decisions. The stress you have because you've accumulated problems, I'm certain that they're not worth it. So there's a moment where you have to do the exercise of setting straight your expectations and your priorities. That's what it is to grow old with dignity. Having priorities. What changes in life are priorities, not your preferences. You have to make room for certain problems that do deserve our attention, but there are others that are unnecessary burdens. You speak of sin and immediately the whole world identifies with it, with lust or envy or jealousy. But then you speak about burdens, and people say, well, what's a burden? Well, burdens are all that distract you. Planes don't fly without confirming the weight of the luggage. Because if there's too much weight, more gas is wasted. So the higher you decide to fly, the less weight we can carry. And this is the same in life. One of the principles of wisdom is deciding what battles we're going to fight and what is definitely going to fly outside of our radar. I'm not going to get involved in this. There are problems that we shouldn't get involved in. There are people that wake up in the morning and say, I don't have any problems. Where can I go find one? And they go and search. And I once said to you, what part of the burden that we drag from Tijuana is what are we going to leave? Us Hispanics have that syndrome of emotional debt, always being grateful for those that helped us. And it's noble, yeah. Here we always speak about honor. But let's never forget that a tool is just a tool. You give thanks for a hammer, but you don't pay tribute to it. So we have to honor those that helped us, but at a certain point we have to say, all right, that's enough. When you stop paying off a mortgage or a loan, the bank has no reason to call you back. It's done. You paid it off. And some make us even feel the moral obligation that if we do will, we have to share it with them. Oh, if you're doing so well, why don't you leave me something? Well, because I worked for it. I broke my back. God blessed me, or I'm generous. Who knows? And that's why I insist, in order for God to take us to the future, for us to get there, we have to recognize that certain relationships were very good for our old Tijuana, for our old Buenos Aires, for our old Mexico, but not for the place where we're headed. You can't go through life clarifying misunderstandings, settling hurt egos, or explaining emotions. People are always like, oh, my cousin's mad at me, my uncle's upset, my mother-in-law's left. You're justifying and justifying and justifying, and as we grow up, we're obligated to refinancing certain relationships. Refinancing, like a loan. This includes our parents. You continue to love them, but you have to refinance. I don't know in your case, but in the other service, there are many people with psychopath mothers. You have to refinance your relationship with your siblings. Not stop loving them, just refinance. Say, no, this is the limit. Because you are the one who manages your own emotional budget. No one else manages it for you. You wouldn't allow anyone else to manage your financial budget. And so why would somebody manage your emotions? Someone says something to you or stops saying something to you, and your emotions are no longer balanced. Really, does someone else have that power over you? And so here's what resolved my life. And this isn't anti-Christian, this isn't anti-love, but never call, never write, or speak with someone motivated by guilt. Never. Oh, I didn't call them for their birthday. Oh, it's going to be such a mess. Oh, no. You know what? I better call them for Friends Day because then they'll be offended. If they get offended, then they're not your friend. No, that person won't visit you in jail when they send you to prison for not paying taxes to the IRS. It's a metaphor. Don't laugh so much. It's a metaphor. Oh, I should write to this person because if not, then they're going to think that I don't care about them. Let them think whatever. A true friend will always be there. If it's not out of love and it's just because of guilt, it's not good. It drains you. It drains you. However, when you do things with love, it can be perceived. See, we can never allow someone else's feelings to manipulate our decisions. We don't negotiate with emotional terrorists. We don't negotiate with emotional terrorists. As soon as you discover a terrorist, a mother-in-law, it can be any family member. But we get to a certain age where it's vital to have an emotional inventory and say, what am I going to refinance? This is what I gave myself when I turned 50 years old. Or, sorry, when I'm going to turn 50, that's what I'll give myself. I'm going to refinance. You can't go through life always paying the same interest. So the majority of the relationships that drain us, they end up becoming like a leg with gangrene, with gout. If you don't amputate, it'll spread all the way to the heart. And people don't have the bravery, the courage to cut out something from the past. They end up losing much more. And you ask, well, where does this leave me as a Christian with love? No, you continue loving. That doesn't change. I'm talking about the relationships that are rooted to past experiences but don't have a common denominator in the future. I'm sure we all have a pair of old shoes that are very comfortable. Oh, those shoes where your toes go in, especially after having your toes in a heel all day, and it's almost like Free Willy. All your toes look for freedom. You have these old shoes, but they stink, and everyone can smell the stink except for the owner of the shoes. The shoes have holes. They won't take you far. But these are the types of relationships that you have to cut. They're comfortable, but they won't take you to the future. In Argentina, I built many friendships that at that time I thought would last a lifetime. Like when you go to elementary school and you have your friends and you tell them, we're going to be friends forever until we're old. But then you never see them again. Once you're older, you choose your friendships not by coinciding with the same classroom, but by who you choose. But I've noticed that our lives fluctuate through seasons, and friendships follow that same pattern. So no matter what the reason is, that redefines the dynamic of friendship or even kinship. And then life, God, begins to distance us. And we shouldn't be surprised if for one reason or another, life remodels the floor plans from time to time. It's nobody's fault. Things change. No one is the same person after 20 years, right? If someone thinks they're the same, look at yourself in the mirror, no clothes on, close the door. We're not who we once were. We're others now. We're different. I'm not the same person when I was 30 or 20. I don't think the same way. We're not the same. We're different. And like Solomon said in Ecclesiastes 2:3, everything has a season, including friendships. And so for obvious reasons, we can't force friendships for an entire lifetime. Why? Because they're forged in the trenches daily. For a friendship to last a lifetime, you have to cultivate it for a lifetime. And so for our own mental health, we have to say, okay, we all won't reach retirement together. We won't all sit in next to each other in rocking chairs or put our teeth in the same cup of water. I'm going to change my diaper. Well, can you change mine? Go get me a new one while you're at it? No, that won't happen. We might retire with a group completely different from all the friends that we have now. Now, many of us come from the same environment. Some of us were even raised in the same home, but we've ended up in different places in life. Is there someone here that doesn't look like their sibling, their brother or their sister? Oh, well, sorry. It's all the twins from Switzerland. Is there someone that says, I don't look like my family? Oh, one courageous woman, finally. Don't worry, your family's not watching you. You know, sometimes you say, I don't look like my brother. It seems like I was adopted. But then you see you have the same nose and everything else, and you say, no, I'm not adopted. But sometimes you say, why am I so different to my family? Even more when you know God and your values change, your principles change, and you say, everything's so different. You're at the Christmas dinner or you're gathered for New Year's and you don't laugh about the same things, you don't share the same things. Some say, oh, I don't change. No, that's not true. We all change. But many people, values are present with the perspective from the past. Let's remember that Jesus couldn't do miracles in his city because the people said, oh, this is just the carpenter's son. We know his family. What is he saying now that he's the Messiah? What stopped his miracles? It wasn't his geographic location. It was a limited vision of those that focused more on his past than his present. And some of us, we have people that tell us, I knew you when you were no one, right? I knew you when you were dying of hunger. They always tell me, I knew Dante when he had a Renault 18 ready to give out and a shiny suit because of how much he ironed it. I'm sorry for not keeping that shiny suit in a museum or for trading in my car. I'm sorry. But people judge us based off of what we were and not off what we are, much less what we can become with God, much less. And so they judge us based off what they know of us. And those relationships keep us clinged to Tijuana. And part of the burden that we don't want to leave and that we take with us in life are also those people that see where you are now, but they don't remember, they don't know everything you had to do to be where you are now, right? They have no idea of the process you went through, your battles. They see a picture of you with your house, and they say, oh, look how easy it is in Yankeeland. But they have no clue that you had to have 8 jobs to pay for it. People see our promised land, but they don't know, nor do they want to know our desert. And no one can appreciate the magnitude of our success if they haven't seen the ferocity that we had in our battles. And man, the majority of us that are here have broken our backs. You've worked, you've been separated from your loved ones. You've had to give up playing with your children because this is a country where you can't get free services or free water and gas. Glory to God for everything that I can get for free. No, that doesn't happen here. Other things might happen, but that doesn't happen here. And if you fall behind on your rent or your mortgage, then the next day SWAT is there to evict you. In our countries, you can stay 7, 8, 10 years without paying rent because we just don't answer the door. But here, SWAT comes and says, "We will immediately start to shoot you if you don't come out with your hands up." But they see you and they say, "Oh, it's so easy." They always tell me, "Oh, Dante, you can do so many things because it's easy." Of course, you have the resources. And I say, "Well, don't you think I have the resources now because I've always done so much? Isn't it because I worked, I put in the effort, I believed God?" Because I was also born in that same Tijuana with no resources. When I was born in San Martin, Buenos Aires, they didn't tell my mom, "Miss, you just gave birth to a baby with resources." No. Nor was I born in Buckingham Palace. So like a famous speaker once said, Brittany Brown, she said, if you're not in the ring receiving a beating from time to time, and you're just criticizing while you're sitting in the cheap seats of the theater, then I'm not interested in your comments about my life, period. If you didn't fight with life, fist to fist. So there are many people that don't know where we came from or the price that we had to pay. And surely you might have heard this saying, you have to burn the ships. A great conqueror back in the day was going to send his troops against a very powerful enemy. The enemy army had greater numbers. The conqueror sailed over with his man, and then he burned the ships. And he told his man, he said, "You see how these ships are burning and becoming ash? That means we can't leave here unless we win this battle. We either win or we die." And this was Hernan Cortés, and the great battle was the conquest of Mexico. So he set fire to what could have been an option of escape. If slavery continues to be an option, then we're always going to go back. That's what happened with Israel. I was speaking not too long ago to a missionary. I said, if you're going to be a missionary, you have to unpack completely. Those that go open up their luggage and take one thing out at a time. An underwear, a pair of socks, they put a dirty underwear in, they take out a clean underwear out. It's because they know they're leaving eventually. But those that empty everything out and put it into the drawers, it's because they're staying. The philosophy of, if things go wrong, I'll leave, that's what makes us not have anything. Imagine a husband that says, "Oh, I'll get married, but if this woman turns out crazy in the next 3 months, I'll leave," or vice versa. So if there's always an escape, we're going to be slaves. What do we call it? We call it security, comfort, plan B, but I call it Old Tijuana, Kansas. Israel had 370 years bound in slavery. Great in numbers, but weak in the spirit. The hardest thing to get rid of is our beliefs. That doesn't correspond to God either. We have to do away with our burdens. We can't say, "Lord, get rid of my burdens." He'll say, "No, you do it yourself. Get me off social media." "No, you delete them. You do it. Let the Asians that created TikTok die." "No, you just delete TikTok off your phone." These are the cracks or the shackles that distract us and don't allow us to leave the limits of Israel, of Egypt. I'm sorry. Egypt wanted to subject Israel generation after generation so that they could serve their masters. Like Al Pacino in the film Scent of a Woman, he said, "In war, I had many men go through amputations, 1 or even 2 of their limbs. There's nothing as cruel as an amputated spirit because there's no prosthetic for that. There's no prosthetic for an amputated soul. As much as you want to chase after the American dream, as much as you want to go to America or Europe with an amputated spirit, you're going to be a slave wherever you go. Unless you cut off the past definitively and you burn your ships. What's stopping us from leaving Egypt? Hebrews says, let us throw off everything that hinders. Sin, you repent, and it's done. But for the burden, you need courage. Even, especially nowadays, when it's an offense to leave a WhatsApp group. Why did you leave the WhatsApp group for all the mothers? Well, because I was tired of all the moms that comment about Matthias's flatulence. Well, I don't understand. What did we do? Something? Did we hurt you? And they begin to call you and bother you because you left the WhatsApp group. There are people that say, can you pray for me? I need to leave my family's WhatsApp group. I don't know how. Well, just leave. And so when Israel was set free, they had nostalgia for the flavors of Egypt. They left Tijuana, but they never took Tijuana out from within them. They never took Argentina out of them. And Numbers 5:11 says, we remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. It doesn't matter that they were slaves. They missed what they ate as slaves. And so there are aromas that sometimes come back and give us a nostalgia of wanting something that can no longer be. And the aromas are connected to our emotional memory, right? And that garlic and that onion was never free. It was like the internet, the web. If something's free online, it's a lie. You're the product. The food in Egypt was free, but to keep them strong for slavery. And so it's time to burn your ships, my friend. Jesus said, no one that looks back after putting their hand on the plow is worthy of God's kingdom. If we want a good future, we need a past in flames. And that's what I call an intentional fire. Of saying there are things that are good and others that aren't so good. The past, what we've done, where we've been, who we are. Each day we have to choose between living in that past or creating a future. We have to get used to pills or cough drops for our throat on this side of the border. The dulce de leche from these American cows. Now, it's not an easy road because you cling to the familiar, to what you have, and sometimes we make an extension of the past. And at some point in our lives, we have to put everything that we know on an altar for a promise of something in the future that we don't know. But that's what it is to get married. We can't say, oh, I'm going to get married, but if things go wrong, I'm going back with mom. I know some of you do it, but that's not getting married. You have to burn the old one, your past. With that being said, I'm not going to lie to you. There are pains from your childhood that never go away. If a preacher tells you, no, all pain goes away, no, he's a scammer. It gets better, but there's pain that never goes away completely because I insist they're in that 1% of memories that God allowed. It's a topic for another sermon. But to make us who we are now, to give us certain resilience, a certain threshold of resistance for the highs, the ups and downs of life. Forgetting isn't acquiring amnesia. You can remember the pain, but not allow that pain to travel with us. Not allow that pain to accompany us everywhere. Scars are a special beauty. I like them. I like to see scars. Because those that don't have any wounds means that they've never battled a good fight. Scars in life are a plaque of honor. They're like the scar of a C-section of a mother. And that says that scar on her tummy means that she gave birth. She had a child. Whatever the scars are, they're always good. There's a old joke. It's a bad joke, but it says that several tough Americans gathered to speak about their scars. And one said, this scar on my face, I fought tooth and nail in Kansas City, and that's how I got the scar. And another American said, I got this scar on my chest when I fought in Dallas City. Someone else said, I got this scar in Oklahoma City. Another said, I got this in Connecticut City. And then a Hispanic that was there with him lifted up his shirt and said, I got this in Appendix City. It was a bad joke, but I had to fit it in somewhere. But scars show that we don't give in, we fight. This wasn't the moment. I know. This wasn't the moment. But what I'm trying to say is that once we bring the wound out to the light, healing is inevitable. So we can't go through life not trying to look like someone or not trying to repeat our parents' pattern. No, we have to allow life to, or God to redeem our past and do something with those ashes. More than 100 years ago, a few fishermen were having dinner in Scotland. They were sharing their fishing stories, and one put out his hands to show how big the fish was that he had caught the previous day. And as his arm came down, it crashed against the coffee tray, and the coffee pot broke against the wall of the inn wall, and it stained the wall with brown. And the innkeeper said, "Oh, now I'm gonna have to repaint the whole thing." But the man who spilled the coffee said, "You know what? Allow me to work on it." And so the innkeeper couldn't refuse. The man who caused the mess took out his pens, his pencils, his markers. He applied shadows, borders, and a form of an image began to appear on the wall. He painted a deer with big antlers, and then he left. This man was Sir Edwin Lancer, a famous English painter known for his paintings of wildlife and animals. And from a mistake, he made a work of art. And God does this with our childhood. He comes and he paints over the dislocated marks in our life, and he makes a work of art. And he says, Dante, what does he have? He has Asperger's syndrome, and he's shy, and look at the parents he has, and look at his siblings, and look at his grandpa. He thought he was a part of the war, and he's more poor than a rat, and he doesn't have any possibility of going to university. They sent him to electronic school, and with those blotches, God says, I won't let that identity determine him. The day in which God made a work of art out of my blotches and my stains. Even though the past is in flames, the future is formidable, people. Give a great applause to the King. No. Give a great applause to the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. If you believe that God has spoken, let that applause be gigantic for those incredible stains, those blurry blotches, and these works of art that God has made, people. No. Someone needs to celebrate more than that. The King has spoken today. Yes or no? That is marvelous. Before we go, I would love for us to pray together, and those that are watching at home, those that are here. Last Sunday, I recommended to you, the day my mentor died. I spoke about those mistakes, those sins, that all you have to do is confess so that we can find forgiveness. And today I felt the need, on behalf of God, to speak about burdens, the things that distract us. The majority of these things are relationships or things from the past, things that drain us. And so today is the day, no matter where you are, at home or here, let's make the decision of saying, I'm going to travel light. We have, 2.5 months left to finish the year? Give yourself that gift. Just travel with a small carry-on. Those that travel with a lot of luggage, it's because they've never traveled. The more you travel, it's to the point, minimalistic, pragmatic. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to travel in a minimalistic way through life. There's a famous Argentinian author that said, the wealthy are not those that have the most, but those that need the least to live. And so as we go through life, we realize that we need less and less, that our happiness isn't predicated upon a big house with a big dining table. We don't need a big pool or 2 acres. No, we need less and less, and those that are wise have more money but buy less things. Why? Because they realize that the closer they get to the tomb, the closer they get to the grave, they become a little more naked. There's never a moving truck that follows a hearse. No, we leave it all. And you're wise if you know that you have to start leaving everything behind, including everything that drains us, everything that takes our energy. That's enough. No more foolishness. No more debating over stupid things. Let's debate about important things. If we get to the conclusion that we're not in agreement, well, then the debate was worth it. There are people that become bitter. They don't sleep over this or that. The majority of the things that worry you aren't going to happen, right? Or didn't you discover that everything that worried you as an adolescent never happened? How many of you here wanted to kill themselves because you got a pimple on your nose with pus and you had to go back to high school the next day? You said, I want to die. I want to kill myself. In that moment, it was the pimple. The UN gathered to talk about your pimple. That's what you thought. That's life. Everything that seems to worry us now is going to be childish or petty tomorrow. So today we're going to make the decision of saying, God, I want to travel lightly. I want to let off all the burdens. You know what you have to let go of at home. This goes for everyone. Catholics, evangelicals, Muslims, Jewish, Orthodox Jewish, whatever religion you're a part of. I want all of us to repeat this prayer. Say with me. Lord Jesus, come into my heart, forgive my sins, and help me to get rid of my burdens. Thank you, Lord, because you've blessed me and you've spoken to me today. Come into my life, forgive my sins. Take that burden away again. I want to be yours. Amen. Now let's all pray together. Father, thank you for this morning, this afternoon, this night, wherever you're watching from. I've preached what I believe you told me to share. Thank you for this crib of champions. Thank you for these frontline workers. I bless all those families that are here today, that leave here traveling lighter. May the glory of God reach you. May it redeem you. May God's presence fill you. May God be in every area of your life at all times, in every moment. I bless your being. I bless your life. I bless your health. Thank you because God brought you here. But from here on out, we make the decision that the scars of life and those marks will become a work of art for God. And God will use what is not so that it can be. And He'll turn the ugly into something beautiful. I believe it. I want you to redeem the pain, even the abuse from your childhood that was so frightening, so that you can use it to help others, to bless those that will go through it. Lord, I bless those that are here. I bless this crib of champions, these frontline workers that are on the other side, those that are watching from all over the world. How the Lord loves you. How can He not love you, Prince? How can He not love you, Princess, if He has you sculpted in His hands? How the Lord loves you. He blesses you. He fills you. He makes you travel light. He takes you through life and to a new level. I believe it, Father. I declare it. In the name of the Father, I bless your entry, your exit. When you wake up, when you go to bed, I bless everything that you begin, you initiate, and what you dream. And we declare that the last months of the year, you will travel light in blessing, without any weight or burden, and redeeming the past for a better future. Amen, amen, and amen. Glory to Jesus. May God bless you. May He protect you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May God bless everyone. This applause. Bye, bye, bye. Until next Sunday, people.
Apareciste una noche de soledad, abandonado y perdido te reconocí. Tu voz diciéndome no temas, yo estoy aquí. El Padre me envió por ti. Me curaste las heridas, me sanaste, mi Jesús. Todas mis cargas las dejaste allí en la cruz. Algo tan grande no lo puedo comprender. Oigo tu dulce voz diciéndome una y otra vez: oh, 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 oh. Eres bienvenido, eres amado una y otra vez. Oh, 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 oh. Bienvenido a River, eres amado. Soledad, abandonado y perdido te reconocí. Tu voz Padre me envió por ti. Y me curaste las heridas, me sanaste, mi Jesús. Todas mis cargas las dejaste allí en la cruz.